Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. My name is James Batchelor. Thank you very much for joining us for these daily broadcasts on the Car Dealer Magazine YouTube channel, where we talk to people right across the industry. Now, today on the show, I'm delighted to say we've got Edward Lovett from Collecting Cars on the show. Hello, Edward.
Hi, James.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Well, thanks very much for joining us. I must say, I've been particularly looking forward to this one since we booked you in a couple of weeks ago. Thanks for coming on, very much appreciated. Now, just for a bit of background, Edward founded Collecting Cars with an aim to offer something a little different from other auctions in the marketplace. Collecting Cars specialises in classic and modern classic cars, bikes, automobilia, consigning and marketing cars for clients right across Europe. Now, the business only began a year ago, but it has quickly developed into a well-known business amongst those in the trade, the media, and amongst the general public, not least because Chris Harris is also on board and hosts a regular podcast. Now, Edward himself is very much a petrol head, and his name will be familiar to those in the trade, not least because he was a dealer principal and director of the well-known dealer group Dick Lovett. Now, I've got plenty of questions to ask Edward in the next 20 to 30 minutes or so. If you've got a question, please feel free to drop it into the comments box, and I'll do my best to ask it to Edward. So, okay, Edward, well, let's just dive straight into the topic that everyone wants to know more about. What is Collecting Cars? And tell us exactly what it does and what makes it different.
Okay, well, Collecting Cars is an online auction platform that is curated by us. We deal with incoming inquiries from people that want to sell their cars. We would agree a reserve. We will agree the types of cars we do or don't want to list. And then we list them on our auction platform for 7 days with our qualified registered bidders who are registered with a credit card. We arrange photography in most circumstances. We have copywriters that are working for us to help take the history, delve deep into the history to make sure we can do the relevant due diligence and write a compelling description for the car. With the photography, we're listing anywhere from 100 to 200 photos. So you really, you've got the 7 days to take your time, look over the photographs, make sure if we've described it with no marks on the wheels, there are no marks on the wheels, and stone chips and wears on the driver's seat bolster, and delve into the history, arrange to go and view the car if you want. So it's a very transparent way of listing a car, we feel.
So is that transparency and that in-depthness to the listings and the way you do business, is that really what makes you different, would you say?
Yeah, I think it is, but the curation thing is quite important as well. We'll probably come on to this, but all of us petrol heads can't help ourselves but sort of look at Piston Heads and Auto Trader and the European websites to try and get inspiration of what to buy. But there are so many cars listed on all of these websites now that you can get a bit lost in the search for something. And also with dealers, private individuals listing their own prices, auction houses listing guide prices, so you sort of know whereabouts the reserve might be or the aspirations of the seller might be. We start at zero, so the first bid can be £1. I'm not saying you're going to buy your dream Ferrari F40 for £1, but if for a moment you will be the high bidder at £1 if you're the opening bidder, and I think that's a bit of the fun of it. I've been to auctions all around the world, and there's almost a bit of a fun to be the guy that starts the auction lot that comes up on the stage and having a bid. So yeah, that curation is quite important to us. So when people arrive on the website, we might have a 205 GTI. But we also might have a 488 GTB or something like that. So that we want there to be something for everyone.
Now, I've been on the website many a time, and I have been tempted to put a bid, but unfortunately, my finances would probably be a £1 bid on a Jaguar XJ220.
I look forward to the bidding.
Yeah, but is it that simplicity and the honesty? And how refreshing it is, the whole platform. It's it's in sort of sharp contrast to what lots of people's views are of the classic car auction world, which is it's quite snooty and quite sort of clicky, isn't it?
It can be. To be clear, though, although yes, we are an auction platform, we aren't here to disrupt just the car auctions. We're here to disrupt the classifieds. We feel like we're more of a replacement to the classifieds than we are the auction houses. One thing that we do have in advantage over some of the traditional auction houses, if you've chosen to go down the auction route, you might have to say, right, I'm going to sell my car at X, Y, and Z auction that's in September the 3rd this year. And you have to send your car off to the auction house and they do the photography. And after that auction, you find out whether your car has or hasn't sold. And the auction houses normally have 20, 30, 40 days to pay you. Now, with us, you send us your photography, we do the description, we list the car, and within 7 days, we're going to find out if it's sold or not. Hopefully it will be sold, of course. And we don't have the car. So if it doesn't sell, you don't have to go and collect it from a venue. The winning successful bidder will come and pay you directly for the car. So it's very easy in that respect. That's a big advantage for us.
Okay, so I've won. My bid is won, and on the Jaguar XJ220, which I really want.
Congratulations!
I'm not going to let it go. My bid was the winning one. What happens next? Do I have to go and pick it up myself? Is there a bit of obviously communication opens between the?
I think in the simplest answer to that is yes, you do go and pick it up yourself and you pay for it yourself. We are here to help you. So if we can comfort and facilitate that, then we're here. Whether it's you need transportation, we are here to help with that. But you can go and see the car, make sure it is as described. Hopefully you've seen it during the auction anyway. And yes, you pay the owner, take the V5 or wherever the car is in the world, and drive it away.
Yeah. Now, as we know, the business stretches across Europe. So, how do you know these users who are using your platform are suitable? I suppose it comes down to that curation.
Well, so the users register, they register their credit card with us. So we've got their name, address, details. Our payment provider does a check on they are who they say they are, and their credit card is registered to that address. So if someone is bidding on a car, they are legally liable to buy the car, first of all. But when you win your XJ220, the first thing that happens is that collecting cars collect their premium automatically from your credit card. So if you thought, actually, I don't want to buy it, well, you need to be buying it because you've committed to our T's and C's to buy the car. But equally, you've paid your buyer's premium to us.
Yeah. So how successful has the business been over the past year then? Has it exceeded expectations?
Yeah, well, I think, when you set out in any business, you look at an opportunity and then you fantasize what the numbers could look like. Then you try and bring yourself back to earth to think, well, if I do this in the first year, that will be fine. So my target for our first year of sales was 250 cars. The fantasy was 500 cars. And I think in our first year, we just broke through 350 cars from our first auction that ended in the first week of June 2019 to a year's worth of business in 2020. What has changed though is it was like anything, where we were proving the concept in the first 6 months of the year. It took us from the 2nd of June 2019 to the first week of January this year to break through our first £1 million of cars sold. And as of last night, we've broken through £11 million. So we've done in excess of £10 million worth of business since January at the start of this year.
So presumably, well, obviously, coronavirus wasn't part of the business plan at all, was it?
No, it wasn't. We hadn't written that in.
Yeah. I'd be interested to know how it has affected the business, because as opposed to, on this show, we talk to people right across the industry, and, especially the smaller dealers who have physical sites, and of course they tell us exactly what the struggle it has been.
Yeah.
What's
Well,
been that for you?
So I guess the truth is it's been a huge benefit to us. However, I don't want to put down our team and the progress we had coming up to March anyway. You know, we were seeing huge growth month on month in user activity, bidding activity, and consignment activity. And as we got into the first week of April, you know, everyone's locked up at home. You know, we did have a captive audience looking at our site. So we definitely saw an immediate uplift again in user activities, which, you know, I think we know from all online platforms, they've seen that. However, you know, we did have to deal with the fact that you can't go and see these cars. So again, our transparency with descriptions and photos, etc., has really given people the comfort of being sat at home bidding on cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And broadly speaking, I mean, looking at some of the cars and the prices they go for, the types of people those cars appeal to, if they're in a position to buy that car, they're going to do it, aren't they? And they've got the funds to do it. And so that, you know, it's just about the like you say, about the mechanisms of perhaps picking the car up, but you know.
Yeah, well, I think we realised quite early on into lockdown that car transporters were still allowed to collect and deliver cars, so you know we could deal with that for people. We also put a COVID banner on our website and said that if they want to talk to us about collection and delivery, and if you want to keep the car with the seller for a period of time, just let us know. We've sold quite a few cars into Europe where people haven't been able to travel over to collect them. So the sellers in those circumstances have been paid and are happy to hold the cars.
Yeah. Now to run something like this, you've got to be a petrol head, haven't you? So tell me what interests you.
Well, you do, yes, you maybe do have to be a petrol head, and I love cars, but and would I call myself a petrol head? I'm not sure. I think I'm probably more of a deal junkie than I am a petrol head. You know, I love the chase, and you know, it's not really about the margin. It's more about handling the cars and whether I'm buying something or brokering it or auctioning it. You know, we just love being involved in the different transactions, and we get just excited by selling a 205 GTI than we do a 488. You know, it's the chase.
So just take me back to when the business started. So yeah. Did you come up with the idea? What led you to find?
No, well, I can't claim coming up with the idea of auctioning cars. I think I think we can leave that to some of the traditional businesses that have been out there auctioning cars for a long time. But then, and in terms of online, I don't think any of us can take it away from eBay either. Yeah, there are people arriving in this scene with, you know, devoted, curated online car auctions. You know, we are different to BCAs, etc., that are selling, you know, dealer part exchanges at the thousands. You know, we are picking and choosing what we auction because they have to fit within our brand and what we want to represent.
Yeah, but it's about spotting an opportunity, though, isn't it? And you know, it does offer something a little bit different, though, doesn't it?
It does. You know, the main motive behind me starting this is, as a car dealer and a deal junkie, I get hugely frustrated by reading classic and sports car magazine over the last 24, 36 months, where the market has changed for collector cars. It's slowed down. We haven't got this huge increase in growth because of whatever happened back in 2008, where we saw a massive change in the collector car market. But you know, reading through these magazines where month in, month out, it's the same dealers advertising the same cars at the same prices, it infuriates me. And to going back to what I said about we don't do guide prices, well, I've got no interest telling you what your XJ220 is worth. The market will tell you what it's worth. So if we present it well enough, describe it well enough, and have the footfall on our website, which we do, we will tell you today what or the market will tell you today what your XJ220 is worth.
Yeah. Because I remember there was I think it was a McLaren that sold recently, and it sold a little bit less than what everybody was expecting, and there was a lot of discussion about that on social media. But if that's what if that's what the market dictates.
Yeah, and I think, and I would say, we're still, we are still building our brand and our trust, etc. And I think there were more people watched that auction end than any other auction on our website so far. And there were a few people that messaged us the day after to say, is it still available? I'd still be interested in buying it. But on the day, the person who won was the person that was willing to pay more than anyone else. And that is what an auction does give you, where a car dealer a car and a dealer showroom doesn't, because if they're asking 149,950 for the 720S and you bid 45 and the dealer doesn't want to accept it, then we don't know what the car's worth yet. We know what the dealer wants. We know what the buyer's willing to pay, but we don't really know what the market's at because there hasn't been a deal.
Yeah. So have you ever been tempted to buy anything on collecting cars?
Well, I'm tempted to buy most of the cars because as the prices haven't quite achieved reserve or are creeping up, you think, oh, is it possible to buy that car for that price? And I have bought one car, and I bought it actually after it failed to sell in the auction. And it was such good value. I called the owner to say, would you mind if I bought it? And it was a Porsche 968 Club Sport.
Oh, okay. Are you a bit of a Porsche fan then?
I am. So obviously Dick Lovett being my family business, my father raced Porsches in period. So yeah, I can't help myself. But yeah, I'm always drawn to Porsches.
Yeah. So with your background with the family business, has that sort of influenced anything that you've done with this? Has it been, what did you learn from the family business? It
hasn't influenced me doing this particular business. However, I guess it's helped me have an in-depth understanding of how car trading works. And, I've been involved in the collector car market privately as well for some time. So, I know how the auctions work. I know how the dealer specialists work. I know how the private people work when they come to buy stuff. And ultimately, do I need to deal with 10,000 people that are indecisive, or do I want to bring that down to a number that, ultimately the cars we list are the cars we want to list, and from sellers that want to sell them. We're not that interested in engaging in a conversation. Well, we're going to keep using the XJ220 now, but I've got an XJ220. It's one owner from new, and I want £500,000 in it. For us, that's thank you very much. We can't really help you.
Yeah. We just had a question come in here from Andy, who says, typically, what percentage above trade prices do the cars achieve, and do you track this?
I would say, if I'm totally honest with you, at the moment, we're too busy and we are growing at an exponential rate to stop and track all of our activity at the moment. We've gone from 3 or 4 incoming consignment inquiries a day to upwards of 30 to 50 incoming consignment inquiries a day at the moment. It feels to me, taking that 720S, for example, that we're probably getting 10 to 15% more than trade, and we're getting, in some circumstances, more than retail, but on the most, perhaps 5% less than maximum retail.
Okay. Now, Chris Harris. Now, I'm sure many of our viewers.
Is he asking a question?
No, he's not actually. Now, I'm sure many of our viewers have listened to the Collecting Cars podcast. Now, tell me about his involvement and why he came on board.
No, so Chris has been a friend of mine for almost 20 years. I say 20 years, and I have to remind myself, yes, I am that old. I'm not that old, but I sort of feel like it should be 5 years. But I know I've known Chris for a very long time, and I respect Chris for his voice and his opinion on the market, and his wide variety of choices of the types of cars that he's owned, uses, likes, etc. So when we were starting out on this journey, I said, would you be interested in coming to do a podcast? And he said, sure, let's do it. So there we are. 1.1 million downloads later, we've got a podcast. Now, Chris is... when you put him in front of a microphone, he's bloody brilliant. However, getting him in front of the microphone is very difficult because he, as you can imagine with Top Gear, he is a busy boy. And like many of us, has got kids schooling, homeschooling, and a life to deal with. So it is difficult pinning ourselves down. And we haven't actually, what we should have done is been embracing the Zoom webinar, which is very useful. But we like to sit in front of our guests and talk to them, because it's a bit more personable when you're trying to get down inside the mind of some of the guests we've had so far.
Yeah. And of course, not that you could have expected this, but podcasts became incredibly popular over lockdown, and that sort of that must have done wonders to the downloads, really. And of course, Chris brings a great audience, and an audience that is very much part of collecting cars, really.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that, James. So I think probably for some people, podcasts, they've had time to listen to them, but from what I understand and real term stats, that actually the podcast listening numbers declined because no one was commuting,
driving. Yes.
So I think it's more been things like Zoom webinars. So during lockdown, Chris and I, and also Sam Hancock, we did some Instagram live videos and raised some money for charity. So we raised, I think, just over £66,000 for charity during lockdown, just trying to do something a bit different.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just talk briefly about the classic car market in general. Now, it does tend to be a good barometer, or sometimes it can be a bad barometer of what the economy is doing. So how has it been so far in 2020, and do you see much changing throughout the rest of the year?
This year so far, I deal with a network of dealers around the world, and some are better than others, and ultimately I think if dealers are dealing with correctly motivated sellers with good product, they are finding buyers for those cars. So the market has been pretty good. I think, and this is why, again, we started collecting cars. I think if you're sat on your E-Type or XJ220 wishing it was still worth what it was worth in 2016, you're going to have a very long wait. And I think from a dealer's point of view, there are lots of dealers out there that can sign those types of cars and are dictated by the seller on what they want. But I think the successful dealers are the ones that have been able to manage their sellers or their own stock, their own personal stock, to make sure they're advertising them at prices that are going to be compelling for buyers today.
Yeah. Lastly, Edward, I mean, what are your plans in developing the business in the future?
So Dave Edmonston, who founded Piston Heads, is which, funny enough, and I'm not sure Dave dines out on this yet, but he's had more downloads of his podcast episode than any one of our other guests. But Dave now is full time with collecting cars, so we've got him locked in his home in the Cotswolds, coding for us 24/7. So the next move for us is a firm foot into Europe. So we do sell cars for people in Europe at the moment, and we've sold quite a few cars into Europe. But given language barriers, etc., we've decided that we are in the process of setting up an office in Holland at the moment, and we will be collectingcars.nl. In Europe, which we will use other domain names as well, but to drive traffic. But we are putting a firm foot into Europe, so that's our next move.
Brilliant. Okay, well, that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Do keep in touch with how that all develops. We're going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid. It's been brilliant to catch up, Edward. Thanks very much for taking the time to come on and talk to us. Tomorrow on the show, we've got P&A Wood's Georgina Wood, and ending the week, we've got Auto Village's Paul Boyce. Now, if you want to get in touch and come on the show just like today, then please do email me, james.batchelor@blackballmedia.co.uk, or James Baggett, and you can reach him at james@blackballmedia.co.uk. You can find me on Twitter at JRRBachelor and James Baggett at Car Dealer Ed, and we're both on LinkedIn. You can message us there. Now, if you want any breaking news sent directly to your phone, please do get in touch, because we set up WhatsApp groups where we share the most important stories, and there's a full Car Dealer Live schedule on the website. Do get in touch with us for the link. So thanks again for Edward for giving up his time today.
Thank you, James.
Thank you very much, Edward, which just leads me to say thank you very much and goodbye.
Bye-bye.